It was just 3 years ago when someone came up with the bright idea to have then Masters winner Bubba Watson get behind the wheel of a replica car from the old TV series Dukes of Hazzard and drive it around a NASCAR racetrack to pump up the fans. But NASCAR slammed on the brakes before it ever happened because the General Lee Dodge Charger had a Confederate flag on the roof. And for many years, NASCAR has banned the sale of any merchandise featuring the flag at their tracks. But they have never required tracks to prohibit fans from flying the flag inside any track. That will continue. Nothing else will change as they and many other groups seek to dance around this growing controversy. To this and a whole lot more, welcome back to Sports Professor, the man who invented the concept of sports business, Rick Horrow. Professor, I'll tell you what, they may dance around this, but sooner or later I get the feeling they're going to have to make some sort of a harsher statement, don't you?
Collision course, First Amendment. Listen, first of all, South Carolina, it's laudable. I'm sure everybody does believe that it shouldn't have taken a tragedy to get this far. But then what do? Is it a historical issue that you're saying we're not accepting that anymore? It's obviously a racist issue that causes really significant angst. And I'm not dancing around this at all. All I'm suggesting to you is that there are a lot of things that the NFL and others could love to ban, but First Amendment doesn't allow it, and security issues deal with this. I think this is one of the first things to go. And NASCAR clearly has some hard issues to deal with, especially in a lot of those tracks that are consistent with symbolic Southern roots. NASCAR is really doing a good job. I know that. I've been part of it in looking at their diversity programs. Not taking a stand here would be perceived as a step backward.
And not only that, but if you had to stop everybody at the gates coming in, you would then have T-shirts, hats, flags, I mean, everything else. It would be, first of all, impossible to do it. But I really don't know if it would make that big of a financial hit on NASCAR because they're more than just a Southern sport. People just think that because that's the perception.
Well, let's remember who the corporations are that are sponsoring NASCAR. The Sprints and others are not Southern corporations. They're national and global corporations. So we understand that part of the deal is respecting the heritage. We also understand that part of the deal is expanding into new tracks. Kansas City, Chicago, Vegas, Dallas. All of these tracks are way beyond the South. And so you've got to be very, very careful and balance this very carefully.
All right, let's talk about the Olympics here because Paris has now officially launched their 2024 bid. Boston is still involved here. You and I have had this discussion a lot, and I know that you're very close to a lot of what goes on here with regard to money and all the different things here about getting the Olympic bid here in events. Really, though, Rick, do you want it in your own city? Because the cost of it is ridiculous. Rio will be paying for this into the 33rd century.
How about this? If you do it wrong, you don't want it. If you do it right, you do want it. And the bottom line is when you look at what London did with their games using existing facilities as much as possible, what the early 1980s and Los Angeles did under Alan Rothenberg, that is a legacy game that everybody looks back and says, we're not in debt, we're not spending a lot of money we wouldn't have used for other purposes, we're proud of it. Australia and Sydney built a new light rail system and took major environmental steps on the back of those games. Greece basically went into bankruptcy on the back of those games, and China didn't help, and Sochi didn't help. So the bottom line is Rio needs to look more like LA and more like London than Sochi, and how you do it is really, really very important. I was in Hamburg, Germany, by the way, which is one of the other bidders, along with Paris and Boston and others, and they're looking to build a responsible games. Even the International Olympic Committee selection process says, if you're building white elephants just for us, flattering, but we're not going to give it to you.
30 seconds. Is it possible to do it like Uber Roth and the folks did in Los Angeles back in the 80s?
Yes, it is. And the bottom line is you got to be very respectful to existing facilities. You've got to build a transportation plan that looks like you can use a lot of this after the games, airport expansion, the grid system, and you got to be mindful of your heritage and not overbuild. It is possible.
You got a favorite for 2024?
I'd love to see Boston do it because the USOC has a better chance of getting an IOC bid now that a new financial deal's been done. Just like New York and just like Chicago did. Better chance. Let's see if they fumble the ball or not. Hope not.
I don't want to see it back in one of my old hometowns because they'll ruin the restaurants in the South End. There we go. Takes care of it.
Wow. Always about you.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad you noticed. I learned from you. I learned from the best. Rick Horrow, always a pleasure, my friend. Take care. And go shave, will you, please, for crying out loud. Look good next time you're on my show. Get out of here. All right. The man's just, beards are out, right? Rock on, true believers. Thanks for joining us. See you Friday, right back here on MidPoint at 9 o'clock tonight on The Hard Line.